And section number 3 and 4 specifically talk about what we were just talking about. Acting as a limited agent creates possible issues under this provision because one says not to and one asks, and now you got to violate your fiduciary responsibility. It says, knowingly selling a property to an uninformed out-of-town buyer that the site was a notorious murder act at a minimum is an unethical dilemma and possibly illegal under the common law of agency. If one tells you, I want to know, you got to lie to one of them, all right? So it can pose a problem when working as limited agency.
So
Yeah.
Just say that starts to happen, will you step back and say, I'm going to refer you to someone that...
If you do, if you're smart enough to stop that,
I am just curious. Like, would that be what you recommend doing? Like, if you know something stupid.
no habla inglés. Would you recommend, yeah, probably that's the least of the worst thing you could do, or the best of the least worst thing. Because after you already know it, you know it. You can't unknow something. Never mind. Sometimes I tell myself jokes in the head. Agency disclosure. If we were to sit here and talk about a positive power coefficient that resides on the nuclear reactor, we could talk all day about that. But the fact is, you guys don't know what a positive power coefficient is, right? So it would do me absolutely no good to talk about it. So before we talk about it, I would have to explain to you what a positive power coefficient is on a nuclear reactor, all right? So first of all, Russia uses a negative one. The hotter it gets, the easier it is to burn, i.e. Chernobyl. In the U.S. doesn't. The hotter it gets, the more energy we have to keep pumping into it. We'll never have a Chernobyl in the U.S., different reactors. Same thing about agency. I cannot talk to my client about listing agency or the selling agency or the limited agency unless I explain to them what the heck agency means. Every company has a policy called the written office policy that specifically explains to a lay person what an agent is. That way they can't ever say, well, I didn't really understand what you did. No, you signed the office policy. As an agent, I represent you. I have my loyalty lies to you. Whatever you tell me, I won't use against you. I can't disclose that information. It's kind of like the hippopotamus oath, all right?
Never heard of that.
You guys never heard of the hippopotamus oath? Don't doctors take that?
Yeah. Oh, that one. Yeah.
It's the Hippocratic oath, okay? Never mind. And now I know why we're here so long. Yeah, so we explain agency to them. Before we even talk about I'll be your listing agent, you got to tell them what an agent is. Every company has a written office policy. It's 1 or 2 pages. You have to get that signed by your client. So technically, before they even sign the listing agreement, they sign the written office policy because they can't sign an agency agreement until they know what the heck agency really is. So that's what the written office policy does. It describes the relationship between a client and an agent. Like I said, it's things like, I won't disclose the information you tell me. I won't use it against you. I'll work diligently to make sure everything's better for you. All of that. It also talks about if I share information or my commission. Now, one of the new things on the listing agency form is I have to tell my seller how much of my commission I'm giving to the other side of the table. Used to be if I could get 7%, what I gave to the other side was none of the seller's business. But now we disclose that I'm taking 7% and giving the other side 3.5%. All right? So let's talk on page number 2 there, the listing agent, the selling agent, and the limited agent. We're going to pick up speed rolling downhill here real quick because all three of these, we're going to do it at the exact same time. Because the listing agent and the selling agent are exactly the same thing, except where they're not. Which makes sense. Now, you'll see that the listing agency and a selling agency are the exact same thing, except in one spot, and it completely makes sense as to why they're opposite. So let's cover this real quick. Number one is the listing agent. Number two is the selling agent. For either party, you cannot disclose that the seller will accept what selling price. Guess what you cannot disclose for the buyer? What the buying price is. You can't say what my seller's lowest price is going to be, and on the selling side, I can't say what my buyer's highest price is going to be. Makes sense. I cannot disclose the motivation to sell. I cannot disclose the motivation to buy. Same thing. Must not disclose any facts pertinent to the owner unless by law I have to. I can't disclose any facts pertinent to my buyer unless by law I have to. The listing agent must treat the buyer fairly and honestly. The selling agent must treat the seller fairly and honestly. In the listing, I tell them I have the right to list other houses that will compete against yours. I'm going to list your house, and guess what? I'm meeting your neighbor across the street in 2 hours. I'm going to list their house too. You are not going to be the only person I work for. Same thing with the buyer side. I'm going to show you this house at 2 o'clock, but I'm going to show another buyer the same house at 4 o'clock. You're not the only buyer I'm working with. All right? So it makes sense. They're exactly the same thing. The only difference is the one where it says I cannot give their lowest selling price or I cannot give the highest purchasing price. I can't disclose any information that would inhibit their ability to negotiate. You wouldn't say something like, well, here's a picture of the seller right before they won the $700 million lottery last night. Oh, well, then we don't really need to jack the price up then, do we? They can afford it. You guys are lucky I didn't hit that because I wouldn't have been here today. Somebody said I'd go into work and quit. I said I'd sleep in, call into work and quit. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't checked the numbers. I may be a billionaire. Was no one hit here? Crap! I got to come back next week.
So my husband's in Mass. I'm like, please tell me you have the ticket.
Limited agency, you must have a written informed consent. You have to have permission in advance in writing. Here's the problem with limited agency. It's called limited for a reason. Because you already saw one of the problems. I'm limited into what I can tell my clients. Both sides must understand I'm limited, that I'm working for the other side too. I cannot disclose the buying or the selling strategy to either side. Imagine, it is. I did a deal several years ago where I was the listing agent for Stan Gervitz. Stan had 2 doubles, and he wanted like $25,000 each out of them. He owed $22,000 on each one of them. I knew this. John Sherby was the buyer who said, hey, I want to go see Stan's houses. I was like, cool, let's go. So they both agreed that I could be the agent. Sherby goes in and looks at the houses and goes, these are a POS house. You guys know what that is, right? Yes. All right. He goes, I would never pay more than probably $15,000 or $16,000 for each one of these. I'm like, oh, okay. Now, what do you already know? He's not even offering enough to cover what's owed. I still wrote an offer and 2 counteroffers on that deal, even though I knew it was never going to happen. Because I can't tell Sherby, hey, dude, you're way below what he owes. And I can't tell Stan, Sherby's never coming up above $17,000. So I actually spent probably 3 hours of my life that I'll never get back writing offers and counteroffers on deals that would never close because I can't disclose that strategy to either. You just got to, okay. Can't disclose the motivation. I cannot disclose material facts about the other side that would hamper their ability to negotiate. I also cannot give advice. There's the big kicker. If I've got both sides and the seller says, how much should I list it for? Here are the I'm sorry, let's do it the other way around. The buyer says, how much should I offer on this? I cannot give advice. I would show them the comps and say, here's what has sold in the neighborhood. You decide what you want to offer. Because I already know this side of the table's issues, okay? In-house agency, we talked about that. In-house agency is a loophole to limited agency. If I got one buyer, one seller, they both work for me, that's not limited agency. That's a loophole. Here's a loophole inside a loophole. Your boss may want to know this one. If I'm one of the agents doing the deal and you have the other side, but because you work for me, that is seen as one person, that is limited agency. So if I'm the managing broker and one of my agents has the other side, that's limited agency. If two of my agents each have one, that's not. That's in-house. All right? So Joe's got the listing, Min's got the buying side, that's not limited agency. But if Joe brings his buyer to one of the guys I've got listed because I'm the managing broker, I know what I know what he knows, now it's limited agency, even though it's technically two people. All right.